The LPGA tour had Caitlin Clark play, and the LPGA, fans, well, the event was taken over by the ominous crowd that made sure to go get angry at everything Caitlin Clark did and everything Caitlin Clark does and was ever going to do, and made it that she was the problem and not the solution.
The LPGA, in a display of shrewd vision, publicly celebrated Clark's arrival, realizing the immense value she brings as a fan draw. The league and its players, including top-ranked Nelly Korda, welcomed her with open arms. They saw her as a powerful ally, a breath of fresh air who could introduce an entirely new audience to their sport. The LPGA's public-facing response was one of unity and shared celebration, a clear recognition that Clark is more than just an athlete. She is a personality and a beacon for growth. They understood that her appeal was a rising tide that could lift all boats in the world of women's sports.
The LPGA, you can see when it came to them that they were happy that Caitlin Clark was there. They knew exactly the value that Caitlin Clark brought.
However, this cordial welcome sparked an unexpected and public outpouring of WNBA frustration. Despite the potential boost she could provide to women's basketball, some WNBA players and even league supporters seem to view her as a rival for attention rather than an asset. There is a palpable perception within the league that she is diverting the spotlight away from its established stars, the very players who have fought for years to build the WNBA to its current state. Some WNBA players voiced doubt, claiming that the publicity surrounding Clark takes away from the advancements they have worked so hard to make.
To the whole event, they saw how important it was that new fans were getting involved in golf, especially women's golf.
This reaction raises a critical question: are WNBA leaders and players protecting their established stars, or are they failing to see the wider picture? In a time when women's sports are gaining unprecedented momentum, wouldn't it make more sense to welcome a talent like Caitlin Clark, who brings new followers and a massive media footprint along with her? The LPGA's response, which stands in such strong contrast, suggests a clear and adaptable business model.
Because we know in the WNBA, when it came to Caitlin Clark, it was a lot of we don't need you, and we were good before, and we don't like your fans, and this, that, and...
The energy at the LPGA event was electric. People arrived early to watch Clark play and lingered long after the event to interact with players and take in the excitement. This wasn't a one-time boost. It was a clear indication of a growing interest that could elevate women's sports everywhere. LPGA players like Nelly Korda publicly praised Clark and her ability to draw a new audience. They didn't see her as a threat. They saw her as an opportunity to grow the game and attract a new generation of fans. They recognized that in today's interconnected sports landscape, cross-promotion and collaboration are key to long-term success.
They did everything they could to sabotage their own league. And yeah, it backfired. For me anyway, I think it's hard to argue that it didn't completely backfire for them, because Caitlin Clark is more popular than ever.
In contrast, the WNBA has regrettably been more defensive about Clark's popularity. This posture gives the impression that Caitlin represents a shift that threatens the league's traditional dynamics, rather than a chance to increase its visibility. Some WNBA players appear to consider her fan following an infringement, but this attitude might be impeding the league at a pivotal point in its growth. By ignoring Clark's popularity, the WNBA is missing out on something that could benefit not only its own league, but the larger landscape of women's sports. The league's reluctance to fully embrace her reveals a very different approach, one that seems to prioritize protecting an exclusive club rather than building an inclusive platform for all women's sports fans. By excluding someone like Caitlin, the WNBA runs the risk of coming across as out of step with what the modern sports audience desires. Fans today are searching for dynamic stories, authentic personalities, and connections between leagues. Caitlin Clark's genuine passion for all sports and her public support for female athletes, highlighting the value of unity and shared accomplishment, are what make her so famous. She has repeatedly stated her respect for leagues like the WNBA and her enthusiasm for promoting women's sports as a whole. Imagine if the WNBA had harnessed this passion instead of brushing it aside. Clark's influence could have brought new fans increased ticket sales, and given the league a boost in visibility. Instead, the league's response has been cautious and at times dismissive, which could be a major missed opportunity. They have unintentionally created attention that is now becoming public, which might alienate the very fans they are trying to attract. The difference in approach between the LPGA and WNBA is a clear lesson in adaptability. The LPGA saw Caitlin Clark's appearance as a moment to grow, bringing in fresh audiences and capitalizing on a unique opportunity. They understood that women's sports, traditionally lower in viewership, benefit greatly from cross-league support and unity. They aren't concerned about where the fans are coming from. They are thrilled that more people are interested in their sport, and by working alongside stars like Clark, they are setting themselves up to attract and retain those fans long-term. The WNBA, on the other hand, seems to view Clark's popularity as a threat rather than an asset. Instead of capitalizing on her cross-sport appeal, they seem focused on maintaining a status quo that may not serve them well in the evolving sports landscape. The LPGA's experience with Caitlin Clark should serve as a blueprint for other leagues on how to adapt to changing times. If leagues like the WNBA don't embrace stars who can bring in new audiences, they may find themselves struggling to compete in an increasingly interconnected global sports market. Supporters desire cooperation, vigor, and solidarity, particularly in women's sports because the challenges are shared by all the leagues. The LPGA's success in accepting her demonstrates that openness and progress go hand in hand. If more leagues were willing to adopt this model, it may help all women's sports to flourish. The disparity between the WNBA's and the LPGA's approaches to her fame will probably grow more noticeable over time. In contrast to the WNBA's reluctance, the LPGA's embrace of Clark may spark a larger trend of cooperation across women's sports leagues, a strategy that might elevate all of them. By passing up the chance to collaborate with a star like Clark, the WNBA may ultimately restrict its own reach, potentially leaving valuable fans and resources on the table. This is about the future of women's sports as a cohesive force, not just about one player or one league, and if the WNBA doesn't change, it might end up watching as other leagues profit from the star power they chose to overlook. The WNBA's hesitation to fully embrace Clark can be seen as a microcosm of a larger struggle. For years, the league has worked tirelessly to build a dedicated, passionate fan base that appreciates the unique style and athleticism of its players. These players, a diverse group of elite athletes, have become iconic figures in their own right, and there is a fierce loyalty among many fans to the league's established identity. When a phenomenon like Clark arrives, who brings in a new, and at times, a more casual audience, it can feel like a threat to that hard-won legacy. Some players and fans worry that the media's focus on Clark's celebrity diminishes the accomplishments of others, and that the newfound attention is not an organic appreciation for the sport itself. This internal friction, however, risks becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. By appearing unwelcoming, the league may be creating the very division it fears. Instead of uniting the established fan base with the new one, the WNBA's approach fosters a sense of separation. It suggests that there are true WNBA fans and Caitlin Clark fans, when in reality, the most successful model for women's sports is to have one large, inclusive community. The LPGA's example demonstrates this perfectly. They didn't ask fans to choose. They simply celebrated Clark's arrival and allowed her to become a bridge to a new audience. The public reaction to the WNBA's stance has been mixed, but many fans are outspoken about their support for Clark, regardless of the sport she plays in. They want to see her succeed and are eager to follow her journey, whether it be on the basketball court or a golf course. The WNBA's seemingly defensive posture fosters division and implies that cooperation and cross-sport support are not possible. Conversely, the LPGA appears to recognize the importance of reciprocal promotion and community. Their strategy demonstrates a deeper comprehension of what modern sports fans desire. They want to see players who encourage one another, leagues that collaborate, and a sense of community. The LPGA's partnership with Caitlin conveyed the message that they are actively seeking expansion and aren't scared of gaining new followers or the exposure that Clark brings. On the contrary, they embrace it. This shift in strategy demonstrates a degree of adaptability that could be essential for the LPGA's future success, while the WNBA seems to be mired in a mindset that could impede its own development. The magnetic personality and crowd-drawing ability of stars like Clark represent an incredible asset not only to basketball, but to every sport she touches. Imagine if the WNBA had taken a cue from the LPGA and publicly celebrated Clark's success. The LPGA recognized that Caitlin Clark is more than just an athlete. She is a relatable personality, and that is what attracts people to her. The crowds that came to see her weren't just there for golf. They were there for the excitement, the story, and the opportunity to be a part of something new. This is where the LPGA showed true insight. They weren't focused on keeping things pure or exclusive to golf. Instead, they were focused on growing the sport, and they saw Clark as the ideal person to help them achieve that. The question now is why the WNBA hasn't adopted a similar mentality. The world of women's professional sports is at a pivotal moment, and the contrasting reactions to the rise of basketball phenomenon Caitlin Clark have laid bare a fascinating and potentially transformative rivalry. Clark, one of the most celebrated young players in women's basketball, was recently invited to participate in a special Pro-Am event hosted by the LPGA. The result was a stunning success, an enormous, ecstatic crowd, and a new wave of fans expressing interest in women's golf. This LPGA event wasn't just a simple golf tournament. It was an electric atmosphere where people came not only for the sport, but also for the celebrity and magnetism of Clark herself.